98, 99, 100. Oh, hi. Hi, Algebra. Sorry, just doing a little pre-algebra workout. Let's do, I think it's chapter 11, section 4. Let me get you all centered here. And this is going to be on multiplying and dividing rational expressions. It's a fun little chapter, a fun little section. You're just going to love it. It's going to be laughs and giggles and just everything you wanted. First of all, let me just remind you of a few things. Let's use some easier fractions just to talk about this. What if I had 1/2 and I times it by 4/3? Well, you know that with multiplying things, we don't need common denominators. We just do numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. And that, of course, could give you 4/6, and then I would reduce that to 2/3. Well, if you remember, there's a little thing called cross-canceling, and it's just kind of a way of reducing before you actually do the multiplication. You can see that there's a common 2 here and here. So we're going to cross that out and make that 1. We're going to cross that out and make that 2. There's nothing else common. So now we can just simply go top times top, bottom times bottom, and we get the 2/3, and it's just a little bit quicker and easier. So I first want you to remember that. The second thing I want you to remember is really what reducing is. I kind of quickly assumed there when I said 4/6 becomes 2/3. I assumed that you knew what you were doing. But probably you've done it so long and so automatically that you kind of forget. What you're really doing here is you're rewriting this with a common factor in both of them. You're saying 4 is the same as 2 times 2. And you're saying 6 is 2 times 3. And then what you're doing is you're saying 2 over 2 is really like 1. And then 1 times 2/3 just gives you 2/3. So you're finding a common factor that's on top and bottom, and you're just kind of canceling those out. So I want you to remember that as we go on to a little more complicated situation here. Let's say that they give you one that looks like example 1. It's on page 698. It says, just a moment while I write this down. Okay, all right, we're back. I had a little, I got off the wrong track there. Anyway, now this is example 1. So before we do top times top, bottom times bottom, why don't we do the same thing where we do a little cross canceling, okay? Do you see there's an R there and there's a common R there? So if we cancel this R, and in fact just turn it into a 1, cancel one of these R's, just leave it as R now. And then I notice that there's a 3 and there's a 9, so I can cancel that 3 and turn this into a 3. There's t to the 3rd and t to the 4th, so 3 of these can cancel 3 of these, and it'll just leave me 1t up above. And I believe that's all I can do. So now, after I've canceled, I know it looks a little messy, but I'm left with an R up above. I'm left with a t up above, and I'm left with an x up above. And that's all over 3 times 1, which is just 3. So do you see how that works? We just look and see if there's something that we can cross-cancel before we do it. Okay? All right, that's example 1. Let's do something a little bit harder. Let's look at example 3 for a moment. So there we have this example 3, this is on page 699. We're dividing this time. So what does that mean? It means, remember, that we have to invert the second one and we make it multiplication. So let's do that. Instead of 12 over 25m, it's going to be 25m over 12, and this is going to be multiplication. 25m over 12. Let's do some cross-canceling. That 4, there's a common 4 in here, so that becomes a 1. This becomes a 3. There's a common 5 in there. that becomes a 3, that becomes a 5. There's a common m there. That goes away, and that becomes m squared. And I think that's all we can do. Now let's do top times top, which is 5. Bottom times bottom, which is 3 times 3 times m squared. So 9m squared. And that's all we can do. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, let's go on now if there's something a little more complicated. Look at example 5 for a moment. Okay, this is on page 700. Now at first glance, this looks a lot harder than what we just did. But really it's not. It's kind of in disguise a little bit. First thing I notice is this division. So I'm going to flip this and I'm going to make it multiplication. Okay? So make it multiplication. And then it's going to be y minus 8 over y squared minus 9. Y minus 8 over y squared minus 9. Now, is there anything that you can cross cancel? It appears like there's not, but there really is. What you need to do is you need to factor where you can. We can't really factor that, but we can factor this. So it's going to be y minus 3 over, this will factor into two binomials. It's going to be y and y. Remember that means they're both the same, and that means they're both going to be negative. And it's going to be 2 and 8. Okay? Times, can't really do anything with this. But we can here. This is the difference of two squares. And if you remember, it's going to be y plus 3 times y minus 3. Now, can we do any cross canceling? Yes. Do you see there's a y minus 3 here and a y minus 3 there? That will cancel. There's a y minus 8 here and a y minus 8 there. That will cancel. So what we're going to be left with is, you just can't cancel. You need to put a 1 there. It's going to be left with 1 over, and it's y minus 2 times y plus 3. And that's really all you can do. Of course, you can multiply that and do FOIL, but it doesn't make it any easier, so I think I would just leave it. Okay? So, or it doesn't make it any simpler. So anyway, if you have somewhere you need to factor them first, then see if you can cancel. Let me just, instead of rewriting this whole problem, let me just pretend that when we factored, let's say that it turned out to be and you had a y minus 2 here. I just want to show you this just for a moment. So we would do the same thing where we cross cancel. But also you can cancel up and down, right? Y minus 2 over y minus 2 goes away also. And so in this case, almost everybody's going to cancel except for this y plus 3 on the bottom. Of course, we still need to have a 1 up above, so it'll be 1 over y plus 3. All right? Hope that makes sense. It's really just the same thing you've been doing with the more simple fractions, but now we've just made them a little bit harder. We have to factor them first, but then there's going to be things just cancel, and you'll be left with whatever's left over. It's almost like a reduced fraction. Okay? I think we're going to stop there.